I've supported many families who years later are still feeling the impact of the initial accident and the experience that they've been through. I can come across individuals who may be hypervigilant, controlling, may be avoidant in some cases. And sometimes as a legal professional, we have to have a real understanding of the experience that they've been through and, be very empathetic to that. Can you please explain how trauma can present and how it might affect day-to-day life for both individuals and their families?
There's no rule book about how you're going to respond to trauma. It'll be different for you as it would be for me, even if we were experiencing the same situation. And I think sometimes it's not that it's hard to remember that, but I do find that we have to, it would do us well as professionals to remember that trauma presents differently, even for the same person, should they be in the same situation, because it's so based on individual differences. But trauma itself is not so much about what happened, more about how the brain registers, the brain and the body actually, the mind and the body register what has happened, and then how it sort of carries that experience, if you like. There's a psychologist, a very sort of popular psychologist, Bessel van der Kolk, who says, yes, you may have heard,
is that the body holds the score?
Body, yeah, the body keeps the score. Absolutely. And he says that trauma is a reaction, not a memory. And sometimes we think about, particularly when we talk about PTSD, we think about it as being flashbacks, which is absolutely a symptom, but it's more about how the mind and the body are interacting and holding on to what is essentially the experience that the reaction to the experience that they've had. So trauma comes in different forms. We have big traumas, little traumas. You may have heard of those, and they're exactly that. Sometimes the magnitude of the trauma and the impact it has is what we call big traumas. Sometimes traumas are everyday traumas that may not have such a big impact, but chip away at something very core to people's self-concepts. We also have traumas that are chronic and acute. We have traumas that are ongoing as well as one-offs, but we also have direct and indirect, or vicarious, if you will. So people present with trauma in different ways. Anxiety, flashbacks, which you've mentioned, numbness, irritability. It may well be that they're feeling on edge constantly. I think you've talked about control, you've talked about avoidance, but it could also be that the reaction of trauma impacts sleep, appetite, cognitive abilities, relationships, and indeed the trust that people might have in us as professionals. I think we should also probably say that trauma is not just about the injury in the context that we work in, it's also about the backdrop. Where we talk about intergenerational trauma, systemic challenges, racial experiences. There's a lot about how that person has experienced the world up to the point of an injury that really will colour how trauma is going to be expressed for them. And so sometimes I find with my psychology hat on that talking about the past may feel, and how people have experienced life up to the point of the injury might seem to a non-psychology professional as unnecessary or irrelevant to what happened to them, but from a psychological perspective, it's incredibly important. It's the basis of how that person will likely engage and take forward their rehabilitation package ultimately. But equally, families can feel very helpless to watch an injured person that you love and care for, having to rehabilitate in a life trajectory that was not what anyone was expecting is incredibly difficult. And to watch a loved one struggle is not a pleasant experience. I hear often families talking about tiptoeing around their injured family member, becoming overwhelmed as they try to understand the complexity of their lives, knowing that it's going to be for the benefit of someone else. So often you hear about how those emotions are harboring, being harbored inside, loss of their own sort of preferences and hopes and their dreams, as much as those of the client as well, the actual injured person. So it can feel sometimes that day-to-day trauma is like climbing a mountain, that it's, it becomes monumental, it becomes way bigger than you and I might experience it, because we don't have that level of trauma, or we're not experiencing trauma in the way that they are in that moment. And that's why we talk about often predictability, routines, consistency, and ultimately psychological safety, because we want that foundation to be set so that healing can happen for all involved. And we as scaffolding professionals around our clients need to understand, I think we do well to understand those reactions and to add that sense of safety for both our clients and their family members.
Yeah, that really resonates with me actually, because I often will have clients who may come to me in moments of distress about a particular issue that's happening, for example, amongst a care team, or an employment dynamic that's not working in the house, and they will talk to me about that. And I may have to deliver a difficult message to them about what can be done in those circumstances, that you can't just remove a carer, for example, that you would need to go through a process because of the law and the protection that's in place. But what's really important, I think, is that that individual feels that they can come and express all their feelings to me, and that they can come and talk very openly to me and say absolutely anything they want, and know that they won't be judged for that, and it's okay for them to speak about those issues with me. So yeah, it really does resonate with me when you say about them feeling emotionally or psychologically safe, and that is definitely something that I think that many legal or even medical professionals should all strive to have.
Absolutely.
As part of
I
their
think
dynamic.
It's one of the biggest gifts I think we can give our clients in the circumstances that they find themselves in, and their family members, of course, that they know who to ask, and that in asking, it's not going to be judged or feel unsafe in some way, which isn't always easy when there are challenges and, I guess, processes that need to be followed, and there's lots of things to think about, because it is a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? There's lots of pieces, and if you move one piece, suddenly everything else is out of kilter slightly. So
yeah.